Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ English. In our today's video, we'll talk about the latest setback that the new government in Manipur is facing. Now the notes which I will be using in our today's session, in case if you want to download them, you can go to a particular Telegram channel called as ETS Live and download it. And while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. So let us start by understanding what is happening in the state of Manipur. Now the Kuki-Zo tribal groups, particularly the Kuki-Zo Council, has declared a social boycott of all those Kuki-Zo legislators who have joined the newly formed government in Manipur. This government is led by the Chief Minister Yumnam Khemchand Singh. Now, the boycott and the total shutdown that has been declared by these Kuki-Zo groups is in protest to the betrayal by these MLAs who joined the new government without the approval of the apex body called as Kuki-Zo Council. Now, this boycott was enforced hours before the new session of the Manipur Legislative Assembly is about to begin, and whenever a new session of the Manipur Legislative Assembly or any legislative assembly for that matter begins, it starts with the address of the governor annually, right? Now, this is the context of our today's discussion, but to understand this context, a bit of a background is necessary. Now, a few days back, the installation of a new government happened in Manipur under the new chief minister, and this marks New Delhi's belated acceptance of the fact that anyhow, even if you impose president's rule in a state which is witnessing ethnic tension, it is in no way a replacement or an alternative to a democratically elected government. Now, this acceptance by the New Delhi, this acceptance by the central government, it shows a shift in their approach. Earlier, they adopted a security first approach to handle obviously the things that were going wrong in Manipur, but now it usually highlights a political risk management, because if for a long duration, if the president rule continues, it invariably damages the atmosphere of democracy, which is very necessary in a state like Manipur. Now, there was also constitutional reason why the president's rule was revoked. Now, you need to understand, for president's rule to continue beyond the period of 1 year, you need two conditions to be fulfilled, either one of these two conditions. Worst is that there should be a national emergency in place either in the entire country or in a part of the country. Second is that the Election Commission of India should give in writing, should certify that they can't hold election in that particular state, which is under the president's rule. So only under these two conditions, one of these two conditions, if it is fulfilled, then only you can continue the president's rule beyond a period of 1 year. And recall, last year the president's rule in Manipur was imposed in February 2025. So in February 2026, it marked the completion of 1 year of president's rule in Manipur. So to continue beyond 1 year, the conditions were not fulfilled, and that is why it was a constitutional requirement for the central government to restore the state government in Manipur led by a chief minister. Right? Now, why did the elected government in Manipur fall in the first place? Now, you need to understand, since 2023, Manipur is under a garb of ethnic violence, which is primarily between two sections of population. First are the Metis peoples who inhabit valley, and on the other hand are tribes such as Kuki-Zo and Nagas, who usually inhabit the hill portions of the state of Manipur. Now, this was the original trigger of falling of the government. Eventually, the violence that was at its peak in 2023 and 24 was somewhat controlled, but it did not lead to eradication of the violence. Because of this conflict, it saw, or the state of Manipur saw, de facto territorial separation, where Metis were restricted, or their movements were restricted inside the valley regions in and around Imphal. On the other hand, the tribals like Kuki and Zo, their restrictions or their movement was restricted to the hills. So this shows that different sections of population were separated in the very state which they inhabit, that is Manipur. Similarly, people who are living on the fringes of these hill and valley regions, they were displaced because of the violence that were happening on the fringes. So this led to long-term displacement of people away from their homes. And even today, a long portion or a large portion of Manipur population remains displaced because the tensions have not reduced or the tensions have not been done away with. Now, this kind of ethnic violence and the inability of the state government to control this ethnic violence, it led to the removal of then Chief Minister N. Biren Singh. Now, the early perception that developed against the government came from the communities like Kukis. they felt that the CM was biased toward Metis because N. Biren Singh also came from Methi community. And over the time, this early perception of the biasness of the then chief minister, it also percolated to the ruling party that is in the state of Manipur, that is BJP. So by late 2024, what happened, even inside the BJP, a consensus developed that if we have to achieve any sort of political reconciliation in the state of Manipur, the then government led by N. Biren Singh was acting as a roadblock, not as an asset to remove the reconciliation. So that is why removal of the then chief minister became necessary from BJP's point of view. So they were considering this. Now, what actually triggered the removal of the chief minister was threatening and eventual withdrawal of support by the allies of BJP, that was National People's Party. So when a key ally sought or withdrew the support from the government, it sent a crucial political signal that even though N. Biren Singh had the majority in the House of State Legislative Assembly of Manipur, but he did not have the moral or political authority to be the chief minister of the state. And that is why, instead of the popular government, the president's rule was announced under Article 356. Now, it does not mean that president's rule was an absolute failure. President's rule actually achieved something. It actually ensured a short-term administrative control of the state, which was going beyond the control of then state government, and visibly it also reduced the political confrontation that happened as a consequence of the ethnic violence. But you need to understand, president's rule, even though it can be better in short term, but it eventually harms the politics of the state in long term. And it also led to discontentment when it came to the legislators or the MLAs of the state. Because eventually, whenever the next elections will be declared in Manipur, the legislators would have to go to the public in order to get votes. And when public will ask, what have you done in the past 5 years, they would have no answer, because for a considerable long time, president's rule was invoked. So this also created a dilemma in the minds of the legislators, that if we have to seek popular support, if we have to get votes of the people, we need to ensure that we are inside the government, controlling the administration, not being a proxy administration done by the president's rule, right? So this was the political understanding that developed in the state of Manipur. But despite this greater political understanding, the central government was initially hesitant in removal of the president's rule. Why? Because the ultimate reason for imposition of president rule was what? It was ethnic tension. So has ethnic tension died down completely in the state of Manipur? No. Why? Because the disarmament, which is very necessary to control the ethnic violence, it has not been completed yet. People are still restricted to move across the regions where their rival communities live. For example, even today, a Methi can't freely move inside a hill territory. Or on the other hand, Kuki-Zos can't, without the risk of their life, can't move freely in the valley regions. So this restricted movement, this incomplete disarmament shows that the root cause of the removal of the government has not been eradicated. On the other hand, the talks that are going with various armed groups of both Kukis, Zos and Metis, this is under the stage of deliberation. So there was a possibility, if we again restore the government, this could derail the possibility of the suspension of violence, of the ceasefire that could have been signed with the various armed groups. So that is why central government was initially hesitant when it came to removal of the president's rule. But something changed in the past few months. This shows that there has been certain gradual improvement in the political situation in Manipur. This was led by many factors. First was partial movement agreement. Now, the partial movement agreement that was signed between various groups and the central government, it ensured that for emergency purposes, a person from hill can move in valley, and vice versa is also true. Also, there were many suspension of operations agreements that were signed with various armed groups, which led to calming down of the tensions. And what eventually did a favor to the elected government in Manipur was that Prime Minister visited there, which was a symbolic representation that things are going to be better. So what political or parallel consultations with various groups showed that even if the president's rule is not going to be revocated as soon as possible, but it will eventually happen soon enough. And on top of that, I told you the constitutional compulsion that if you want to continue president's rule beyond a period of 1 year, you need two conditions to be fulfilled. There was no national emergency, there was no certification by the election commission. So this led to reinstatement of the popular government in the state of Manipur. But there are new complexities now. And this new complexity emerges from Kuki-Zo Council, which is the apex civil society voice for tribes like Kukis and Zos. Now, this council has drawn a clear political red line. It says that there will be no participation of Kuki-Zo MLAs in the new Manipur government without a written assurance that the people of Kuki-Zo who are under the subject of violence, they are living under a separate administrative arrangement. And what kind of separate administrative arrangement they are wanting? They want a union territory status with a active legislative assembly. So this is the demand that has been imposed by Kuki-Zo Council, and without any written assurance from the central government, they don't want their legislators to become a part of the government, to become ministers in the new government of Manipur. Now, this matters especially for the Kuki-Zo MLAs. For example, what BJP tried to do, it tried to reinstate a new CM who obviously belonged to Methi community, but to cool down the tensions that have emerged from Kuki-Zo communities, they also decide to make a deputy CM from Kuki community and another deputy CM from Naga community. So this shows a symbolic representation of various ethnicities in the new government. But when Kuki-Zo Council rejected this move, this showed that this symbolic inclusion of members of different ethnic communities is not a symbol of political consent. And on the other hand, outside this symbolic inclusion, outside this bargaining with the elites or with the elite section of different ethnic societies, ground sentiments is still not in favor of the new government because their core demands have not been met, right? Now, this brings a new layer of complexity. First of all, the Kuki-Zo MLAs, they also belong to their respective parties. So they are bound by the whips of their parties. So what the parties, specifically BJP, did was that they said that if you want to withdraw from the government, it's okay. But we would consider this as an example of individual defection. Your withdrawal from the government, we will not see as a withdrawal on the basis of community representation. So this puts the Kuki-Zo MLAs in a bind. This puts them in a dilemma. What is this dilemma? That if they join the government, they would have obviously administrative access, which would eventually help them in the next elections. But going inside the government against the wishes of their community, against the wishes of the Kuki-Zo Council, would lead to loss of their legitimacy inside their own community. And this is the main complexity that has been added to the new government in Manipur. Understood? Now there is a question that have appeared in the exam. We'll solve it. But before that, let us summarize our today's discussion. What did we understand? What did we learn from this video? We learned that restoration of an elected government in the Manipur was obviously politically necessary, but at the same time, this was constitutionally unavoidable. The central government did not have any option to keep this precedent's rule continue beyond the period of 1 year. But the boycott that has been announced by the Kuki-Zo Council shows that the core political demand, the core political question of the possibility of a separate administration within the state of Manipur with a status of union territory has not been resolved. And therefore, Manipur, although has the politics back, but it is without the consensus, without the full support of all the major stakeholders in the state, and this is without any closure of the violence that has happened in the past 3.5 years in the state. Understood? So this was the summary of our today's discussion. Now, before solving the question that appeared in UPSC exam, there are few important announcements. What we just did, that is imposition of precedence rule, the conditions for continuation beyond 1 year, is an essential part of Indian polity syllabus. And to learn more about Indian polity and about other subjects in the UPSC exam, what you can do is take admissions in the resolution batches. Resolution batches are essentially foundation batches where everything from prelims to mains to interview, everything that you need will be provided to you, be it live classes. In case if you miss live classes, you have access to recorded lectures. You have one-to-one mentorship support, which will help you address all your doubts. You have both prelims and mains test series. All of this are exclusively part of Resolution Plus batches, and we are starting a new batch tomorrow, that is 7th of February. So to take admissions in these batches, you won't get such good options afterwards. Please take admissions in our batches, which are offered separately for students looking to give exams in 2027 as well as 2028. Right now, these batches are offered at a very cost-effective rates, but to get even more discounts on these courses, what you can do is go to our website, and before making the payment. If you apply the code ATS Live, it will help you fetch maximum discounts. Okay, so this was all for today's discussion, and the question that I promised, this is the question that appeared in 2014. Which one of the following are discretionary powers given to a governor of the state? So governor, whenever there is an elected government, has certain constitutional discretions. So what are these discretions? Please do let me know in the comment section. In the answers also, you can write in the comment section. The ones who get it correctly would get a thumbs up from my side. And to download the notes, you can go to this particular Telegram channel. Its name is ATS Live. Okay, so this was all for today's discussion. Please have a very good day, and do let me know in the comment section what do you feel about this issue. Are you actually agreeing with the fact that the restoration of the elected government in Manipur is a good news, or do you think they should have been more inclusive, particularly with the concerns of the Kuki-Zo communities? Please do let me know in the comment section. This is all from my side. Please have a very good night.